So you want to design clothes, but you don't know how. I'm going to teach you exactly how I design clothes like these or any of these pieces here, and bring them to life with my clothing brand like any of these pieces. I'm just going to get straight to the point, and this video has chapters if you just want to skip to a specific part. Let's get started. First step, inspiration and ideas. You're going to want to start collecting images of various things that inspire you. So this could be actual clothing, graphic design, posters, architecture, or even movies. Anything at all that you can draw inspiration from. I recommend to do one or more of the following. 1. Make a mood board on Pinterest. 2. Create a saved folder on Instagram. 3. Create a mood board on Canva. And 4, sometimes I will even go on eBay, Grailed, or Depop and search through the clothing there to find some more inspiration. Then I will screenshot anything I find there and import it either into a Canva mood board or a Pinterest mood board. So as a clothing designer, you just want to constantly be collecting things that inspire you. So every day I'm thinking about design, whether I'm at home, whether I'm driving around, whether I'm at the grocery store, and so on. I'm constantly looking at things from a design perspective. For example, I might be driving around and see a building that looks cool and think the design of this building would look cool as a pair of pants. Or maybe I'm at the grocery store and I see a bag of chips and think, well, the pattern on this bag of chips would make a cool pattern for a hoodie. Or just simply looking at the clothing that other people are wearing in public. Point is to always be thinking about it, so you're constantly collecting and thinking of ideas. So anytime I see something that inspires me, I capture the idea by either sending myself a text or I carry around a notepad with me pretty much everywhere I go. So I'll write down a quick note or do a quick sketch. That way I can come back to it later and make an actual design out of it. But if you're really stuck on coming up with ideas for clothing or designs, then I'd recommend to find some clothing or some art that you really like and then recreate it in your own way. So you're not copying it word for word, but you're recreating it with your own personal touch to it. This is a great way to get started if you're just having a creative block and can't think of any ideas. Once you've collected a good amount of inspiration and have a mood board or a folder of ideas and the inspiration, then grab out a pen and paper and start sketching some designs. I personally just focus on quantity rather than quality when it comes to sketching. You don't want to be a perfectionist when it comes to just sketching because you're just trying to get the ideas onto paper. So for example, I was trying to come up with some designs for this t-shirt which has different paneling on it. And I'm just trying to come up with as many different ideas that I can rather than taking a bunch of time to just craft the perfect sketch. So once you have a good amount of sketches and you have a good idea for the design you want to create, then we can bring it to stage 2, which is going to be drawing it on the iPad using Procreate or designing it on the computer using Adobe Illustrator. First, I'll show you guys how to use Procreate on the iPad with a drawing pencil. If you don't have an iPad, feel free to just skip ahead to the Adobe Illustrator section. Okay, so here we are in Procreate. Procreate is an app. It does cost money. It's about $8, I think. But in my opinion, it is very well worth it. Here you can see some of the designs I've been making. I'm going to show you guys how to make realistic clothing designs like these. So first up, we're just going to create a new document. I'm going to use the square size right here. I'm going to click this wrench in the top left, go to Canvas, click Drawing Guide, Edit Drawing Guide, click Symmetry, and we're going to do Vertical Symmetry. And I'll just click Done up here. So now we are on this layer with the assisted symmetry. So anything I draw on this side will be reflected to the other side. For the brush, I'm going to go use the monoline brush under calligraphy. And so if you click on the brush and go to stabilization, I have it pretty stabilized. The stabilization helps to just draw smoother lines so you can see that it smooths out a little bit. Rather than if I have the no stabilization on, it's like very rough and it's not going to look as smooth. So we're going to do monoline with the stabilization. Alright, so I'm just going to make a hoodie. So I imported this photo of a hoodie that I can sketch for the outline. So I'm just going to make sure this is lined up in the center of the document. And then I'm going to create a new layer, click on this, and put Drawing Assist on it. And then I'm going to double tap the hoodie layer to lower the opacity a little bit, down to about 40%. And now I'm just going to draw the whole outline of this hoodie. And then if you have any parts that are not symmetrical, you just want to turn the symmetry off and then draw that in. Now that I drew the outline, I'm just going to remove the image. Alright, here we have the outline. I drew a different hood on it because the first one looked a bit weird. But now that we have the outline, I'm going to create a fill layer. I'm also going to rename this while we're here. So I'm just going to rename this outline. I always like to say organized in here so it doesn't get super messy. And then I'm going to swipe left to duplicate it. And then on this first layer, I'm just going to take the eraser tool and erase some of these lines right here. So it doesn't matter that we are doing this because we have the other outline above it. But as you can see, this is all broken up now. And this will allow me to add this fill right here. If we had done it on this outline without breaking up, it wouldn't fill the entire thing. So that's why I'm erasing different parts of it. So now we have this fill layer here. So I'll rename this as well. I'll just either call it fill or color. I'll just make this dark gray for now so we can see those lines. Then I'm going to add another layer. This one we're going to rename stitching. And you can see right here I have a custom stitching brush. This brush I bought on Etsy. It was about $2 maybe. So I'm going to do white stitching so you guys can see this. Then we're also going to want to turn on the drawing assist again. Alright, so as you can see, this is a stitching brush. So it appears like stitching. So I'm just going to fill in all of the stitching now. Alright, there you go. Now we have the entire hoodie drawn. We have all of this stitching here. And it is a pretty good mock-up if I do say so myself. Now because we have everything layer separated, I can always just turn off this layer with no stitching. I can also press on this layer and click invert. So now all of the thread is black. And then I have this color layer as well. So I can just select this and do a color fill down here. And then I can just choose any color that I want. So we can do this lighter red color. And then I can show you guys how to add a faded look to it as well. So we're going to go to brushes. We're going to find the airbrush right here. I'm going to use the soft airbrush. And I'm going to use white color for the brush. And then I'm going to make sure it's pretty big. I'm also going to move this layer right above the color layer so that we can set it as a clipping mask. So now everything I draw in here is only going to show up on the color. So what I can do is just add this airbrush here for kind of this sun faded effect or just faded look in general. So now we have a cool sun faded hoodie. And then you can always mess around with the layer settings as well. So we can turn this to lighten. It'll be a little bit, well, that looks weird, but you can do screen. Just different blending modes can have a different look with it. So the overlay looks pretty nice. And then if we want to change the intensity, we can do the double tap and change the opacity of it. And then now that we have this as the clipping mask, we can still change the color here again. So as you can see, I can just change this any way I want. So if we want a black hoodie with a fade, just adjust the opacity again. We have a nice faded look. So now we have a cool faded hoodie. Now to make this look even more realistic, what we can do is first add some shadows to it. So I'm going to do another new layer with a clipping mask. Should also rename these layers. So I'll just say fade, rename this one shadows. And what I'll do is just use the black brush again with the soft airbrush. I'm going to turn the drawing assist on. And what we can do is just add some shadows around the outside of it. I'll make the color lighter too so we can see better. Make sure you're on the right layer. So we're just adding a little shadow around here. This is just going to help it give it a little bit more depth. So I'm just going to change the opacity and lower that a little bit. Turn it down to like 30%. And then we can also add some texture to this. So I'm going to add another layer again with the clipping mask on. Turn the drawing assist on. And I have some fabric brushes that again I bought off of Etsy. I'm going to make the color layer a little bit lighter for this so that I can draw on the texture with a darker color. I'm going to go darker and then we can draw on the texture with this darker color. So now you can see we got some good texture on here. And then here we just have the basic hoodie. From here what I could do is just add some more designs to it. So with the drawing assist on, could add in some panels if I want, or other unique aspects to the pattern. And then just add some stitching to that as well. As you can see, we just have something pretty simple with these panels here. And then you could just put your design on here or do whatever design you want to make. But those are the basics when it comes to Procreate. It's honestly very easy. You definitely will pick it up very quickly. Just make a lot of designs and you'll keep getting better and better. Okay, so now you know how to design clothes on Procreate. Now I'm going to show you guys how to design clothes on the computer using Adobe Illustrator. Alright guys, we are now on Adobe Illustrator on my computer. Adobe Illustrator does cost money as well, but it is definitely worth it. So first up, we're just going to click New File. I'm going to do 2000 by 2000 pixels. A lot of people I've seen will do like 4000 by 4000, but I kind of feel like that's excessive. 2000 by 2000 has worked perfectly fine for me. Alright, so we made a hoodie in Procreate. So now I'm going to make some jeans in Illustrator. First up, I just have this reference of some denim jeans, and we're going to use this to trace an outline of. So on layer 1 over here, we have the jeans. I'm going to lower the opacity again down to about 30 to 40%. Then I'm going to create a new layer in the bottom right. I'm going to lock this first layer with the pants on it. Now this second layer, we're going to draw the outline on. So I'm going to click P on my keyboard. That's for the pen tool. So the pen tool just draws lines like this. I'm just going to have an outline with a stroke of about 3 points. And then we're going to do black for the stroke. So now we can just draw a full outline of these pants. And it's on a separate layer. Definitely make sure you are on a second layer so you're not just drawing on the photo. You're going to start by only drawing one side of this. So you'll just trace the entire thing. What you can do with the pen tool is you click it, and while you're holding it down, you can drag it to create curved lines. So we're just going to trace these pants and use the curved lines. So I'm clicking and dragging to make it curved. Just continue tracing this whole thing. And as you can see here, we have this weird line. So I'm just going to click and hold down the option button. You should see that little pointy thing. And then you can click this handle to adjust it. So I'm just going to make it straight right here. And then I'll just bring this back to the center. Now that I have half of the outline done, I can click V, which is going to be the selection tool. And then what we'll do is click on this line path, option drag over to create a duplicate, and then I'm going to go to Object, Transform, Reflect, and Vertical Reflect. So now we have a copy of this side and we have the full outline now. So you're only going to draw half, so you don't have to just draw the entire thing. You can just draw the symmetrical parts and then flip it, similar to how we drew the symmetry on Procreate. Now, because this is not symmetrical, we just have to draw this by itself. I'm also going to lower the stroke weight of this a little bit down to 2. Now we will just keep drawing this thing in. So I'm clicking and dragging to create the curved lines, like I said. You don't have to trace the pants exactly, but just use it as a reference. The nice thing about Illustrator too is you can see I just drew these lines with these sharp angles on them. But I can click on this, press A. That is going to be the other selection tool, the direct selection tool. And you'll see these little dots right here, and you can just click on this and drag it to round the edges of them. So now we have that overlap piece right here, and I'll just keep drawing the rest of the jeans. So for curves, you can either do it, just draw the curve like this, and there you have it right there, or you can draw that angle like I said, like this, and then if you click on it, you can just do that rounding thing like I said. So either way, whichever one you prefer. So I'll just do the same thing for this, just round the edges of this, and then because it's the same on both sides, I'll just copy and paste this again, and then Object, Transform, Reflect, just flip it, same pocket on both sides. And then I can press L, which is going to be the circle tool. If I hold it down pressing Shift, it'll be a perfect circle. Now we have the button, and then I'll just add in some little belt loops. Right now the lines overlap, that's okay, we don't have to worry about that right now. And then so I'll option, click and drag this again to make a copy, and same thing, Object, Transform, Reflect, Vertical Reflect. Now is the same on both sides. And now we have the full outline of the pants, so I will make this photo invisible now. Also going to adjust these pockets because they look kind of ugly in my opinion. Okay, so now because we have both of these sides right here, it's not the same shape, so it's still disconnected. So what we can do is select both of them, and then I'll double click with my mouse and click join right here. So now that this is all one shape, I can add a fill color to it. So we'll just make them blue. Now you can see we have a good outline of some jeans. And then from here too, if you want to adjust it, you can just click A, and that is the direct selection tool, like I said. And you can click any of these anchor points and just move them outwards. So if I wanted to just turn these into some big ass bell bottoms, it's very easy to do. So now we got some wide ass bell bottoms. Or maybe we want some big ass straight legs. The options are pretty endless, and then obviously you just have to adjust these. You can just click the anchor points and drag them. And obviously we would do it cleaner than that, but just to show you guys how to do it. So I am going to make these a little bit baggier just because I like baggy pants. Alright, so we have a little bit baggier silhouette now. So now we have these shapes up here. They're a closed shape. So I can click I for the eyedropper tool and click on this blue color again, and it will match this same object. So it has the same color as the rest of the pants. And then same thing with this. I'll just click I, click on this one, and it will copy that same color. And now we have a pretty good outline of the pants. The next thing I will do is add some stitching. Okay, so I press P for the pen tool again. And now you can do this on another layer if you want to separate the stitching. I'm gonna lock this other layer just so I can draw on it with no interruptions. I want to make sure there's no fill on this one, so I'm gonna turn the fill off. And I'm gonna do white stitching on these. And so how you do stitching on Illustrator is super easy. You don't need any custom brushes or anything. I'm just gonna draw it in like I normally would. So we have these lines right here for the stitching. Obviously that looks like shit. So what we can do is select both of these, click on stroke up here, and then we're gonna click dashed line right there. Now you can see we have a dashed line here, but clearly that still looks like shit. So we're gonna make some adjustments. We're gonna go 1 point, click back on stroke, and right now it's set to 12-point dash, and I'm just gonna turn this down to like 2 points. And I can see that looks a lot more like real stitching. And then we're just gonna repeat that throughout the entire pair of denim. Okay, now we are all finished with the stitching. As you can see, I'll just make it black so it's easier to see. Now the plus with working on Illustrator is it's much easier to make adjustments to all of this at once. So I can just select all of this stitching right here, make it a bigger stroke if I wanted, so we can change how the stroke looks. We can also change the dashed line like I was doing earlier. So if we want to make this wider, it's just a lot easier to do technical adjustments like this, whereas in Procreate you would have to erase it and redraw all of it. Alright, so now we have a pair of pants designed in Illustrator. Now if you wanted to add some fading to this, Illustrator is kind of whack when it comes to fading because everything in here is vectorized and faded effects do not do very well in vector setting. Photoshop is much easier for adding fading, or Procreate. Now I made these other faded PNGs just overlays in Photoshop, so I'm just going to drag this over it. I'll just set this above here and change the opacity a little bit. So now you can see it is a little bit faded and it has more of that all around faded look. And I'm going to put this on a layer above and then lock it so I can still move around on here. But it's still not the best way because it's just sitting on here. Typically, if I were designing on Illustrator and I wanted to add fading or like texture, I would just take this, I would export it, and then bring it into Photoshop and add the fading in there because Photoshop is much better for that kind of stuff. But for now, we're just going to add in this faded overlay, and then I'm just going to change the color of this a little bit. If I want to add a design, I can add a new layer, and then just, if I want to do like some paneling, just draw this down here, and then maybe we want to add another panel right here and make this cool shape. And just make this weird pair of wavy denim. And then maybe we want to add a cargo pocket on the side. Alright, so obviously I just made this design really quickly, but then we can just drag and shift it if we want a symmetrical look. and I'll go up to Object, Transform, Reflect. And then now we have the same design on both sides. Just gonna take away these cargo pockets and then add some stitching and call it done. So for these lines, because they are kind of crazy, I'm just gonna Option drag them over to create a stitching line out of it. So I'm just gonna go up to the stroke and add the dashed line here, and then I can come up here and just make sure it goes to the edges. Alright, so I just add some stitching. This is not the best design, but I just wanted to show you guys how easy it is to make designs in Illustrator. And this is also on a separate layer, so if I wanted to turn it off, I can just make that invisible. Alright guys, that is it on how to design clothes in Illustrator. That is exactly how I designed these pants right here. This is a pair of pants that I actually released with my brand. As you can see, it is the exact same stuff. We have all of the wash and the stitching, everything layer separated. And then it's the same thing I did with this hoodie design, chain stitch sweatsuit. Actually, this one is not layer separated, I lied. But regardless, same exact method. And here is another one. You can see I made this entire puffer jacket in Illustrator. Here are some references I used for inspiration. Got some different colorways. You can even see we have these custom zippers right here, which this is something that I purchased to use. But all of it is the same exact stuff. It is very easy. I promise you, once you keep doing it, it's not that hard to do. Now the next steps, if you wanted to actually get your designs made, would be to make a tech pack and then send that tech pack to a manufacturer to get it sampled. And if you do not know how to do that, I will be posting tutorials on both topics. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss those videos. Hope that was helpful, guys. Peace.